Alrighty, folks, you're tuned to Love 101 FM, the family station. Welcome to another edition of The Healthy Way. Yeah, today we're talking about bacterial vaginosis. Yeah, with us this morning is Dr. Leah Walker from the Westminster Medical Center. Hey, Dr. Walker, how are you?
Hi, morning. I'm great. How are you?
Great. You enjoy the lockdown?
As much as I could.
Great. Now, bacterial vaginosis is a type of vaginal inflammation caused by the overgrowth of bacteria naturally found in the vagina, which upsets the natural balance. What do you want to add to that, Dr. Walker?
I mean, that is pretty much a perfect description of what bacterial vaginosis is. It is not a sexually transmitted infection. What it is simply a change in the vaginal flora, meaning the vaginal environment. It's important to understand that within the vagina, there is bacteria.
Right.
Now, majority of the time, this is what we refer to as the good bacteria, what we call lactobacilli. Generally, it's called that because this bacteria produces lactic acid.
Right.
And lactic acid is what keeps the vaginal environment acidic and therefore keeps it relatively, quote unquote, clean, thereby inhibiting the growth of other bad bacteria, referring to things like what we call Gardnerella vaginalis, which is the chief bacteria responsible for bacterial vaginosis, as well as other types of bacteria. Now, the problem is anything which can upset this normal vaginal environment can decrease the amount of lactobacilli, thereby giving a chance for these other bad bacteria to predominate. And that is usually what happens in the scenario under the setting where individuals develop bacterial vaginosis. So, menstrual blood can sometimes disrupt the environment within the vagina and precipitate bacterial vaginosis. Semen, because of its difference in terms of pH, can disrupt the vaginal environment and cause a bacterial vaginosis. So anything which can interfere or disrupt that environment can trigger bacterial vaginosis.
And it did say it's not a STD or STI.
Definitely not. Yeah. So it's not something which can be transmitted, and simply because there isn't a counterpart in males which can be linked to Gardnerella vaginalis in females. So it's not sexually transmitted. It's not an infection. It's simply a change in the vaginal environment where another type of bacteria predominate over the normal lactobacilli.
Let's talk about some symptoms. What are some things women should look forward to or look out for?
Well, the hallmark of bacterial vaginosis is the characteristic discharge. That is the watery, or referred to as gray-colored discharge, which often has a fishy odor. So those are usually the hallmarks of bacterial vaginosis. It may not present with any significant itching or irritation, but certainly that characteristic discharge is often present. And it's usually something which can be diagnosed simply on, inspection, examination. And the patients themselves are usually quite aware when they develop bacterial vaginosis because of these same or similar characteristics that they're able to detect.
And
so it is something.
Right, go ahead.
Right, so it is something which is pretty easy to detect. It's also something which is very easy to treat.
It's funny you said that because I read this morning and it says many women with bacterial vaginosis, they have no signs or symptoms.
Right. So all they may have, just on initial inspection, is that characteristic discharge, and that is usually the only thing. I mean, a lot of the times you do have women who may present for sometimes a routine pap smear, and it's only at the time of doing the pap smear, where the physician may evaluate the discharge and detect that there may be evidence of bacterial vaginosis, or even send off the pap smear when the results return. It returns saying evidence of bacterial vaginosis.
Right. Well, we went through some of the causes. Multiple sex partners can be a risk factor, Dr. Walker.
Yes, certainly. So that is something which has been highlighted. They've noted that cases of bacterial vaginosis increases in individuals as the number of sexual partners increase. So again, this is all related to disruption in the vaginal environment or vaginal flora, and not necessarily as a result of a sexually transmitted infection.
In terms of complications, what are we talking about?
I mean, most of the time, bacterial vaginosis is relatively benign. There is a link, however, with BV in pregnancy, and that bacterial vaginosis is a potential risk factor for miscarriages.
Mhm.
But all in all, it's not usually something which often presents any significant complications. As a matter of fact, 50% of cases of bacterial vaginosis may resolve spontaneously.
Right.
As the vagina restores its normal environment, it just resolves on its own.
Prevention? How can we prevent it? How can it be prevented?
I mean, certainly practicing good vaginal hygiene is always important. The number one thing that I tell, all my patients, especially adolescent patients, is avoid interfering too much with the vagina. The vagina is quite capable of maintaining its own environment. So especially when cleaning the vagina, cleaning the vulva, you want to avoid any, strongly scented soaps, any strongly scented deodorizers. You want to avoid douching. Avoid cleaning the inside of the vagina. Avoid, of course, getting detergents or soaps on the inside of the vagina. Want to avoid using strongly scented fabric softeners or detergents on the underwear, because they often may contain chemicals which can interfere with this vaginal environment and precipitate BV. So those are usually things, just simple vaginal hygiene, minimize basically the amount of interaction, especially with the inside of the vagina, especially when it comes to cleaning and using detergent.
Right. And if left untreated, what happens?
Well, as I said, 50% of the time it may resolve on its own. For the other 50% of the individuals, they may just continue having this recurrent discharge. It can be a bit unpleasant in terms of the odor itself, or it may not present any significant symptoms.
Somebody's asking if it can turn into chlamydia.
No, chlamydia is a separate entity entirely. Chlamydia is caused by another organism called Chlamydia trachomatis. So that is itself is a sexually transmitted infection, not something which can be developed from bacterial vaginosis.
Great. All right. You want to add anything else before you go?
Certainly.
Yeah.
There are a significant number of women who have bacterial vaginosis or recurrent bacterial vaginosis. It's always important to treat, but not only treat, but also identify the underlying precipitant. Because if we're just treating without identifying what is causing the problem, patients are more likely to present with recurrence.
Yeah.
So practice good vaginal hygiene. If there's any abnormalities in the discharge, seek medical attention so you can get some treatment promptly.
Great. How can we find again Dr. Walker?
So, of course, I'm at the Westminster Medical Center. That's 1A Westminster Road. And also find me on Instagram at Dr. Leo Walker. And contact me. My number is 876-372-3790.
Great. Always a pleasure. Keep safe. Appreciate it.
Same here and same to you.
Great. We're there with Dr. Leo Walker, obstetrician and gynecologist from the Westminster Medical Center. Yeah. That's our topic today, bacterial vaginosis. We're tuned to Love 101, the family station. I'll catch you tomorrow for another interesting feature inside the Healthy Way.